Direct News TV. December 23, 2023. Israel-Hamas war live, more than 200 killed in Gaza in 24 hours. Gaza's health ministry says 201 people have been killed over the past day and 368 wounded. A watered-down UN resolution boosting aid to Gaza has been criticized as nearly meaningless. Israel continues its deadly bombardment of Gaza from north to south. The World Health Organization chief has reiterated his warning that famine is looming in Gaza. More than 20,000 Palestinians have been killed in Israeli attacks since October 7, according to Gaza's government media office. The death toll from Hamas's attack on Israel stands at nearly 1,140. Red Crescent receives 70 aid trucks through Rafah. The PRCS says the trucks were received from their Egyptian counterpart and included food, water, humanitarian aid and medical supplies. 23 commercial trucks also entered the besieged Gaza Strip through Rafah crossing, the Red Crescent said. A Jordanian student who was active in Gaza was shot in Germany. Legal and human rights activists in Germany say the killing of Mohammed Barakat, a 21-year-old student in Hamburg, is related to his activism, both online and offline, on the war in Gaza. Netanyahu thanks Biden for U.S. taking stand at UN Security Council. The call between the two leaders came a day after the UN Security Council passed a resolution that called for the scaling up of aid for Gaza, but came short of calling for a ceasefire or pause in fighting to do so. U.S. opposition led to days of delays before the final version was approved. The United States also opposed the demand to create a UN monitoring mechanism for aid, assuring Israel would continue to have a role in inspecting deliveries. His office said that Netanyahu expressed his appreciation for the US's actions. He also made it clear that Israel will continue the war until all its goals are completed. Israeli forces killed pregnant Palestinian women, government media office. The office's spokesman says that, according to witnesses, more than 137 civilians were executed by Israeli forces in Gaza City and the Northern Strip. Among them are people killed in front of family members and pregnant women trying to make their way to Al-Adha hospital as they held up white flags. We have received testimonies that the occupation army has committed field executions of more than 137 Palestinian civilians in the Gaza and northern governorates, Ismail Al-Thawabta, director of the media office, said in a news conference. He said the Israeli army set up detention camps east of Gaza City, dug large pits in them and placed dozens of our Palestinian citizens inside before executing them by shooting them directly, and then buried them with bulldozers. No response from Israel to the allegations was immediately available. Al-Thawabta also said in total 20,258 have been killed, 8,200 of them children, 6,200 women, and 310 medics. 7,000 are missing, either under the rubble or their fate is unknown. 70% of them are children and women, he said. Protests held in Tel Aviv, Caesarea against Netanyahu. According to Israeli media, thousands of protesters are on the streets of Tel Aviv calling for elections. Meanwhile, hundreds were reported out in the northern city of Caesarea. The war has seen Israeli support for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu plummet. A large majority think that this despicable man who sends soldiers to war but is afraid to attend their funerals should go home. Roni Neiman, whose nephew was killed on October 7, told the Haaretz newspaper in Caesarea. Gantz tour northern Gaza, promise more attacks on the south. Israel's defense minister and former defense minister, who, along with Prime Minister Netanyahu make up the Israeli war cabinet, visited northern Gaza. In a post on X, Gallant said the pair held a situation assessment. The defense minister also promised more attacks on southern Khan Yunis, saying it will soon look like the ravaged city of Beit Hanun and the Gaza City neighborhood of Shujaiya. Gallant said, every house that is shot from every place where there was terrorism will be dismantled. He added it would be done so the residents of the south can return to their homes safely. Israel failed to achieve its goals in Gaza, Hamas. The group's representative in Beirut, Osama Hamdan, says Israel's war cabinet statements about eliminating the resistance are empty threats that only express its foundering. Hamdan also said, "There will be no negotiations on the exchange of captives until the onslaught against Gaza stops. If Israel wants to keep its prisoners alive, it must stop the war." The UN Security Council resolution regarding aid to Gaza is a weak and insufficient step. The U.S. administration worked over 5 days to hollow out the Security Council resolution of meaning and value. Residents of Gaza are living in unprecedented catastrophic conditions. UN institutions bear responsibility for the continued suffering of the people of Gaza. The Israeli army committed horrific massacres against pregnant women in the Gaza Strip. Netanyahu's office rejects report U.S. deterred preemptive Hezbollah attack. In a statement carried by the Can public broadcaster, the office responded to the Wall Street Journal report that the Biden administration talked the Israeli government down from a major attack on southern Lebanon on October 11. The Biden administration warned such an attack would lead to wider escalation, according to the report. Israeli officials reportedly argued such an escalation was inevitable. The Wall Street Journal report is incorrect and our decision from the beginning of the war is to achieve victory in the south and deter any attack in the north, the Israeli Prime Minister's office said. U.S. holds the key to Gaza ceasefire, Amnesty chief. Agnes Callamard, Secretary General of Amnesty International, says the UN Security Council resolution for humanitarian relief will only result in a drop in the ocean of suffering in Gaza. There should not be hindrance to the delivery of humanitarian assistance. Israel should not have stopped the delivery of humanitarian assistance and create the conditions for making delivery impossible, she told Al Jazeera. There is only one country to unlock what's happening at the moment, the carnage, the mass-scale violations of international law. That country is the United States. People in the White House and the State Department, they hold the key to aid delivery and a ceasefire. Red Crescent still operating in Jabalia despite the bombardment. The Palestine Red Crescent Society says it remains operating at its medical point in Jabalia, northern Gaza, despite the shelling. In a video, PRCS workers can be seen treating Palestinians injured by Israeli air raids in a makeshift tent amid a shortage of medical supplies across the besieged coastal enclave. Israeli military, 5 soldiers killed in South and North Gaza. The military also says 44 soldiers were injured in the past 24 hours, 10 of whom are in critical condition. In a statement, the army said 189 had been wounded critically in ground operations, 310 with medium injuries and 327 lightly wounded. Iran dismisses U.S. claims it is involved in Houthi Red Sea attacks. Iran's deputy foreign minister has dismissed U.S. claims that Tehran was deeply involved in attacks by the Yemen-based Houthi group on ships in the Red Sea. The resistance has its own tools, and acts in accordance with its own decisions and capabilities, Iran's deputy foreign minister, Ali Bagheri, told the Mehr news agency, referring to the Houthis. The Houthis have promised to attack commercial vessels traveling to and from Israel in solidarity with Gaza. The fact that certain powers, such as the Americans and the Israelis, suffer strikes from the resistance movement, should in no way call into question the reality of the strength of the resistance in the region, he added. On Friday, the White House released intelligence it said showed Iran provided drones, missiles, and tactical intelligence to the Houthis. The Pentagon says the Houthis have launched 100 drone and missile attacks targeting 10 merchant vessels in the Red Sea. Biden talked Netanyahu down from preemptive Hezbollah strike, report. In the early days of the war, the U.S. president discouraged the Israeli prime minister from launching a major attack against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, according to a new Wall Street Journal report. Israeli warplanes were set to launch the attack on October 11, in what the newspaper described as a preemptive strike against what Israel assessed to be a plan by Hezbollah to cross the border as part of a multi-pronged attack. The U.S. deemed the intelligence to be unreliable and feared it would spark a wider escalation. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant was particularly in favor of the attack, arguing a broader conflict was inevitable, according to the report. Israel and Hezbollah have exchanged cross-border attacks since October 8, but have so far avoided a major escalation. Global pro-Palestine protests influencing Western leaders, analyst. Speaking to Al Jazeera, Hassan Barari, a professor of international relations at Qatar University, says there have been quantifiable results of protests in solidarity with the people of Gaza that have spread across the world. At the very beginning of the conflict, October 7, October 8, there was nothing in Europe. And then, as the war went on, people realized that it was not about the reaction to what happened on October 7. It was a war of Israel against the Palestinian people, he said. Protesters do not accept the fact that the Western forces are complicit to what Israel has been doing in Gaza, he said. My name is Kingsley. Please like, share, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be the first to be notified whenever we post. You won't regret it.